Hi, everyone. My name is Aidan. I have a background in business operations, anti-money laundering compliance, and data analytics. I've worked in analytics for both in finance and marketing spaces, and I just love how AI is transforming these industries. I'm really excited to break down the latest AI news and developments with some good friends, Sahib, Chris, and Jacob. Our aim is just to be your one-stop shop for the latest AI and financial news where we're going to break down headlines, emerging trends, and just have open discussions around these topics. Whether you're an AI enthusiast, a financial professional, or just curious about how these worlds collide, we just want to have you covered. So let you take it, Sahib.
Thank you, Aidan, for introducing us and introducing our very, very new podcast here. Hey guys, my name is Sahib. I'm got a background in finance and also software development, and I've been in the tech space for about 8 years now. Happy to be here, and hopefully we can break down some of these large news headlines for you guys, so you can better understand them. Jacob?
Thank you, Sahib. So, hello, everyone. My name is Jacob. I have a background in tech consulting, specializing in business applications. And I also focused my bachelor's on economics. Beyond IT, I also have a strong financial interest in just general financial and stock news. And I'm always looking for new trends, deals, and strategies to help the everyday person navigate their future. And I'm also really excited to break down all of that with some good friends on this podcast. Passing it on to Chris.
I also have a background in finance. I've worked in web and app development myself. I've actually studied a lot in energy and sustainable business and supply chain practices. And I'm actually really excited to be here, kind of talk about my own little facets and learn from everybody as well. So hopefully we get some good feedback and are able to get rolling really well off of each other here.
Heck yeah.
Uh,
I'm super excited. And, thanks everyone taking the time. We've talked about this for a while. Now we're doing it. It's cool. It's cool. The dream is alive. But yeah, so we'll talk about today's news or this week's news. Amazon, we use it every day. A lot of us use it, some more of us more often than not, but looks like they're investing over 100 billion into AI infrastructure for 2025. Now that Amazon is doubling down on AI and planning these massive investments in these AI data centers, cloud computing, and AI driven services like Bedrock and SageMaker, this move kind of places it ahead of competitors like Microsoft and Google in the AI race. My question to kind of to ask to all of us and just kind of something to think about is what is Amazon's AI expansion a game changer, or are they just, do you think they're just playing catch up with Microsoft and Google at this point?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? They didn't really have one of those big proprietary models that all these other guys had, like Microsoft. I mean, technically, they don't really have their own proprietary model. That's big. They're mostly relying on OpenAI, at least right now. But Google, they had their Gemini. It was originally Bard, then they changed it to Gemini. But now, I mean, Amazon's doing all these investments. They're partnering with Anthropic. They just released Alexa Plus for their Echo Show users, and then following that, for the following month, I believe they'll release it to Prime members for free, and then they'll also release it to the general public for 19.99 a month. But I think it's a little bit of both for sure. A little bit of catch up and a little bit of they've already got that partnership with Anthropic, and I know Google's also investing about 70 billion. So it's pretty safe to say that it's a little bit of both for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you could even see it on their Q4 spending. You see 26.3 billion suggests an annual investment of 100 billion in AI infrastructure for 25 for in the 2025. So I mean, it's definitely like it's a statement for sure. Like, and you can see that across the industry with, Microsoft and, Meta, they're having their own like aspect and all of this, and it's interesting to see play out.
Yeah, I also think it's pretty beneficial, right? They kind of got to sit back and watch the other leaders duke it out, see where they went wrong, where people were kind of up in arms about it, right? So I think them sitting back and kind of passively investing just to get their own groundwork laid and then I guess after they felt they kind of sat back and watched long enough, they were able to strategize long enough. They feel good about where they're at, and they're able to just throw this money at it and hit the ground running. And it might give them a better foundation than Microsoft or Google, some of those big hitters from early on. So I'm actually kind of excited to see how this goes. I know that they're doing massive implementations with their Amazon Web Services platform. So kind of similar to Microsoft on that, they're going direct to the kind of business to business side of things using that. So that'll be interesting to see how those two things. I think it'll be more of a competitor to Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot, than anything.
Copilot. There's always so much hype around Copilot. I feel like everyone's always talking about, oh, AI agents, oh my gosh, the next big thing. It's sometimes it's like maybe it's a little too overhyped. I know Sahib definitely has some words to say
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that particular thing.
yeah, I mean, a new model comes out. It seems like what every week now. At least that's what it seems.
Right.
That's obviously that's not the case, but it just you have all these like talking heads on LinkedIn and everything. Just every time the model comes out, they're just like, oh, a day later, where they barely had time to test it, they're just like, this is the next big thing. This is the best
Clickbait.
coding model. This is the best coding model that's ever been released. But yeah, it's very interesting. I do want to go back to your point about how Amazon's kind of been sitting back and now they they can sit back and now they're not sitting back. They can, start getting into the AI space, right? It's kind of like a stark contrast from what they were before, right? To me, it seemed like when Bezos was directly involved, it seemed like Amazon was like always trying to push the boundaries, always out there, one of the first ones to release things. Now that the new guy, I forget his name, unfortunately, now that he's there, it's kind of seems like they're kind of sitting back and seeing how their competitors do everything, and then deciding to invest where they want to invest. So I guess to me, both pros and cons to that model.
Yeah, do you think it's smart? Do you think like if you're behind the curve, I mean, if Microsoft and them, they feel like they've laid a good enough foundation, because I know you mentioned, Aiden, that they kind of are reliant on OpenAI, but with intentions to build out their own. I don't know the real details on it, but I do know they're building out their own system based on it. So do you think that upfront investment that put them really ahead of Amazon by leaps and bounds early on, if they've also taken the time to build a foundation in the background of this, I mean, Amazon could look at never being able to catch up, right? I mean, because they had no big investment to get the jump. So, I mean, their AWS platform is so much further behind than Microsoft's like competitive platforms. So,
I mean, I wouldn't say AWS is behind. It's actually one of the it's
cloud
I think it's the
Yeah,
number
one of
one
their
services.
leading.
cloud
Yeah.
provider right now. That's mostly because a lot of these enterprise companies rely on Amazon Web Services to like host their websites and everything.
Yeah,
Um, but
everything.
but Azure is definitely getting up there. It's they're doing massive improvements. I do like a lot of the improvements they made. But I mean, I don't think necessarily it's a bad thing that Amazon kind of set back. Obviously, they weren't really they weren't really behind because they were still allowing people to deploy these AI models on their cloud platform.
Okay.
So yeah, so I wouldn't say they were behind. I just think they they weren't as open about all of their investments like everybody else was, Microsoft, Google, and obviously OpenAI. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it was they're necessarily behind. They just went about it a little different.
Sahib, so just hearing all of these different data points that you guys mentioned, in your opinion, who is the current like leader? Which company is the current leader in AI? And in terms of like market share, who's dominating the space, and how would that how do you think that's going to continue in the future? Like, is it just all about like dumping as much money into it as possible? Because I know for example, Amazon, like you guys were mentioning, they kind of sat back and they were taking their time with this. Now they are investing a lot, but they have surpassed, like in financial news, they surpassed Walmart as like the biggest revenue source in the world. So like they're technically one of the biggest companies and make a lot of revenue. So if they just throw enough money, maybe that's their strategy. They're taking their time and then they're gonna, see where the trend goes. I guess that's my question is like, how is the strategy supposed to be played out here? Are you just supposed to wait until new innovation comes out, or that's kind of like what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, that's interesting. There's this book I remember we read in a management class. It wasn't a book, but it was like a lecture that one of our professors gave us. It was I think it was running into the chasm or something like that. And supposedly there's a chasm between early adopters and the early majority, which are the terms that he uses. And this chasm basically is the turning point, whether when you adopt a new technology or use this new technology, it determines whether you'll be successful enough for it. And kind of finding the correct way to do it is super risky in that regard, especially when it comes to something like this. I mean, this is like new, this is forefront, this is like at the forefront. Everybody's like wanting to use it now and see what it's doing. And so I think definitely going forward for companies that want to adopt such a technology like this from these companies like Amazon, Meta, and whatnot, just to be weary of, just be pragmatic, I guess, is what I'm trying to say when it comes to these new technologies.
Yeah, I mean, I think you made a good point. How it's definitely pros and cons of being the first one, right? You could either crash and burn, or you could be super successful. Obviously, OpenAI was on the other hand of that, where they were super successful. Going to Jacob's point, where he was asking who I think is the leader right now. I think right now it's still OpenAI. Obviously, in the beginning, it was definitely OpenAI, but
Right.
I think OpenAI does not have room to be complacent. All these models are getting better and better. You see all these benchmarks and stuff. So at least for me, yeah, I think OpenAI is definitely a leader in the space. Anthropic's got its own niche when it comes to coding. I to In my opinion, I think Anthropic's new Sonnet 3.7 is the number one coding LLM out there. And to Jacob's point, like, is it like a thing where you're just supposed to spend millions and millions and billions of dollars on these new technologies and make them more massive? I mean, we saw with DeepSeek how their model. I mean, I have my opinions about DeepSeek, but
Right.
in terms
We'll get
of
into that later.
if it really costs 5 million, but it's I don't think these companies necessarily need to throw all this money at it. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, guys?
So I think it's a target audience thing, right? Of
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
it's not just a vague thing, I think Chat GPT, it's kind of your everyday use case, like your everyday person, right? You and I can go on there and we can ask a quick question. And I think a lot of people that are really doing the whole intro to AI are going to be using these chat bot kind of things. But then you have other use cases such as the business use case, right? If I want documents scanned or if I want, sentiment analysis or anything like that. Okay, well, OpenAI isn't in that space for the most part. I mean, obviously with Copilot and how that works. But I think if you look at like Gemini is kind of the same way. They're more of like they support Google search directly. So it kind of depends on how you're measuring value. Because I think OpenAI being kind of your everyday person's use, it really empowers it the most, but it might not be bringing in as much money directly, right? Because I mean, they're making money off of subscriptions for the most part, from what I understand.
Right.
So, but you have services like Copilot that are being used on a massive scale now by businesses every day, and that can be implemented in multiple different ways. So, I
And you
think,
guys had like firsthand experience with all of that, right?
yeah,
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 we use Copilot all
we're
the
a part of
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Super cool. Sorry, I cut you off. I just wanted to point that out.
time.
No, yeah, we work with them. Yeah, I mean, we do. The reality is we do. We build bots off of it and get to see how it works firsthand for sure. I enjoy playing with it, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, love extending the capabilities. I mean, Copilot is, if you think about it, since Microsoft's doing all this investment in OpenAI, the all the underlying what is it called, natural language processing is basically just ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, yep.
I know people
But with
say it might
specific
be,
cases.
yeah, I know people say it's like it might be a dumber version, but at least Microsoft says the M365 version, you can, it's basically just 4.0. I know they said you could use O1 now. That recently came out, which is like Microsoft's or OpenAI's most
The
uh
quickest one, right?
advanced. No, it's like their most advanced reasoning model.
Okay.
So now they said you could use that unlimited on M365 Copilot. But yeah, I mean they all have their own strengths. So we'll see how the market goes. Like I said, these companies can't be complacent. New things are coming out. Open source is now beating some of these proprietary models. So yeah, they definitely don't have room to just coast.
Hmm.
Yeah.
This is
All
the
right.
bubble. Find your place.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. We kind of talked about it, but we're gonna be moving on to the next headline that kind of garnered attention in the AI finance space. So Microsoft's AI agent Magma can apparently control software and robots, according to their internal testing. So Microsoft Research has introduced Magma, which is an AI foundation model that integrates visual and language processing to interact with software and robotic systems, which supposedly marks a major advancement in human AI collaboration. This is something we kind of haven't seen before. And Chris, you mentioned earlier that you had actually watched a video about that. So I'm curious to hear kind of what your thoughts around that are, and kind of how the integration, you can see the integration working just in general.
Yeah, so most of what I was watching was kind of simplifying it and breaking it down because the hardest part to kind of put into perspective is how it can interact with both virtual and physical environments. And that's hard to explain, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah, it'd be super hard.
yeah, so let me think of kind of the best way to break it down. I really wish they had a stronger demo
Yeah.
because basically it can manipulate things, whereas a lot of the AI solutions, they're not manipulating anything. You're reading,
Hmm.
you're maybe updating,
Hmm.
but you're not doing the right side. You're not editing, you're not manipulating it, you're not changing anything. But
What
how
did
to
you
really
find
explain that?
interesting about it?
Well, just the capabilities. I mean, at the end of the day, having something that is going to let you do such complex actions without human intervention, right? I mean, think of the stuff you can do if you're just think of AI that we have now, right? Whether, like I said, you're scanning things, you're scanning data constantly. You can have it perform simple tasks, build bots off of it and stuff like that, summarize things for you. But imagine that on a physical level that can also interact on a digital level, right? Because it's driven by data directly, but it can perform physical tasks. So I think there's a lot of use cases for it, right? And I think we're going to touch on it here in a little bit, maybe, but think of the kind of growth of these automated like physical robots, right? Of the humanoid robots and kind of things like that. They can the neural net that kind of powers them is going to be strengthened, right? So that AI powering their digital side can also help them learn physical movements, physical interactions, and it's just going to allow it to operate on a much grander scale outside of just this digital scanning, I guess.
Gotcha. And for people who don't know, if maybe anyone like, what's a neural net? Like when people say neural network and like natural language processing and how these large language models actually work, how would you explain like what a neural network is?
Well, the easiest way and this is how I actually got into neural networks, is Tesla actually. They have their auto driving, whatever you want to call it, self-driving, that they're going to level 5 self-driving is their goal. And they basically do reinforced learning, which is so every car that's on the road that where the people are, they sign up for it and they sign the documents to say, yes, you can use the cameras on my car to scan it, sensors on my car to scan everywhere. So think of all these Teslas on the road, as someone enables self-driving. So if I don't live in San Francisco, but I'm traveling to San Francisco and I want my car to drive autonomously through San Francisco, somebody else has driven there, or multiple people has driven their Tesla through these roads in San Francisco. So my car is connected to the same neural net that these are connected to. So all these cars are scanning the surroundings and the lanes and the speed limits and everything like that, and their knowledge is basically shared among everything that's connected to that neural net. And this can be, if we're saying we want to have like a robot working in a factory, right? And you want it to be able to pick up a box and move it from point A to point B, it can learn maybe from the robots before it how to balance the weight, how to what angles to approach certain turns at, because we know how to walk, we know how to do all these little things that you don't think about, but they can learn and basically operate off of each other. I've also seen it on as a use case on a video game, a racing game, where the AI just drove the track repeatedly, and they basically reinforced learning, and they drove it until it basically found the fastest path. And once they found the fastest path, all that was in a neural net, and so they then had like their own instances of the AI all
Yeah.
on the same neural net race, and they all were incredible, like just basically on the tee every single time. So that's how I would explain neural net. It's obviously a lot more advanced as far as a technical sense, but for anybody that's just getting into it, you just kind of think of a bunch of robots learning and then sharing their learned knowledge.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
That's the
it's
way I
super
explain it.
interesting. Super
yeah, I mean,
interesting.
essentially, in layman terms, it's basically a way of machine. It's basically a machine learning model that basically tries to mimic the computational power of a human brain. So it uses like these pathways essentially that tries to mimic neurons, right? So all these neurons in your brain are interconnected. So it's basically just a machine learning algorithm essentially that tries to mimic brain processing power. So essentially, they can learn from data in real time.
Yep,
Yeah,
all at
it's
the same
super
time.
fascinating. And especially when you put that in like a robot format. I mean, just like I think with it was Magma, I think of they tested it, put it on a robot, and it was able to like grasp, it was able to determine, I have to read the article again, but it was able to determine basically and grab what was in front of it and kind of understand what it was and just kind of like think out basically like a human would, kind of like what you said, just process all of the whatever the object was, all of the things of the object. And that's super fascinating. I mean, there's so many potential applications. It could be like utilized in manufacturing. Like in the future you could even get robots that are on your supply chain, in your supply chain, and help move around, like I don't know, boxes or something, and
Yeah,
like
they
even
can
automate.
You
recognize
have
it.
them,
Right.
dude.
That's
They'll be able to
insane.
tell what the difference are. Even if you have like a certain size box, you like go get me a 12 by 8 by 8 box,
Yeah.
and there's like multiple stacks of boxes, it'll be able to look at it and know. Or like think
Speaking,
of think of this, like some crazy thing, like we'll just assume you have all the money in the world to be able to do this, but you have like a little humanoid robot that you want to go shop for you. You give it a list, and it hops in your Tesla that self-drives all the way to the store. It drops off your humanoid robot. You tell your humanoid robot you want two
Eggs.
apples, and orange, and yes, yes, some eggs, and it'll go in there and it'll know where everything's at. It'll be able to look at it and it'll recognize what's what, pick it up, pay for it, and leave. Come
Yeah.
back.
I
Super
would
cool.
I would like to say I also saw an article recently of Amazon incorporating, I believe it relates to the like neural network topic you guys were talking about, where they attach a little device to the Amazon delivery drivers, and they're pretty much trying to build additional data for paths for, I guess, delivery with some type of automated process in the future, whether that could be robots or even enhancing their drone delivery technology they were trying to do. So that kind of, I think, adds on to what you guys were talking about. And I guess those little devices that they attach to the Amazon drivers, I don't know exactly what data they're capturing, but I'm sure it's exact positioning of the paths, maybe the elevation, maybe, you know, the speed, stuff like that. I don't know exactly what the technical ones, but I feel like when you combine that with what Microsoft's Magma can do, I think that can just help with a lot of the more complex delivery, for example. But I guess one question for you guys is, do you guys ever see this going in a potentially malicious direction? If AI software can control like robots now, like is there a point
No,
in the coming future where it can pull a trigger, which would be a very, very dangerous
I think there'll be, you know, safety protocols
Safety
put in
measures,
place.
yeah,
You know,
but you kind of
I
gotta
think it's
bet,
just like anything.
it's interesting. You gotta kind of ask that question at that point. It's like, oh, like we give these robots this kind of autonomy. What
Yeah.
are they gonna like, break out of this loop, or like what's gonna happen? We don't
I wonder
know.
if
You can't
you
can't say
I wonder if
no,
you
but
just hold the owners responsible, right? Like if your robot's outside beating up your neighbor for letting their dog, you know what, on your lawn, like maybe that owner needs to have some liability, you know?
yeah, I mean that brings up a whole nother facet. AI safety and safety protocols and companies that are focused on that. And that kind of leads into the next topic or headline I wanted to bring up. Google expands its AI partnership into Anthropic. Anthropic is strengthened. So Google has strengthened its partnership with Anthropic, who's a really big AI and safety and research company behind the Claude AI models. So this move aims to set higher AI security standards while leveraging Google's TPU V5E chips for AI inference. So yeah, this is a big step for Google. This company, kind of like Jacob, we kind of talked about it, all of us before, just how AI ethics and what that would look like in this kind of developing space. We don't really know how things are going to play out, and just want to get your guys' thoughts into like what do you guys think the landscape will look like with a company like Anthropic kind of spearheading first this move with the using Google's chips and the AI safety and ethics involved in this? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be something that people are more inclined to talk about, right? At least right now, it's more just like, oh, what can AI do? This is amazing. It can do this. It can do that. But it's definitely important to understand that these models should have some type of ethics. I mean, we've seen it play out when OpenAI came out recently, or not recently, obviously, but when OpenAI came out, people realized like, hey, these guys are training this AI model on copyrighted material, right? At what point do these big AI guys have to start paying the people who actually created this data? So, yeah, I mean, it's always important to talk about ethics and security when it comes to these models, especially as these models get more and more advanced. I mean, let's be real right now. These AI models, I wouldn't consider them actual AI. They're more just like these
Hmm.
reinforced models that
Yeah, yeah,
that have been trained on this data and
right,
all the if-then statements and stuff like that.
right. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
nowhere near AGI, but yeah, I mean, what do you guys think?
AGI, just real quick, for people who don't know, what does that mean, and what is that like? What does that mean?
Yeah, so AGI is basically artificial general intelligence. So it's the point where AI is essentially as close to human thinking as possible. It's got free will, et cetera, et cetera. When people say AI has free will right now, they come out with these like models saying that, oh, this AI is free will. They don't really have free will. It's all coded and stuff. AGI is essentially It could be AI that has all the emotions of a human. I could think like a
Mm.
human, reasons exactly like a human without too much human interaction or input. So it can think for itself. It can create new ideas, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, like I said, we're nowhere near that right now.
Yeah, that
What are
sounds
the
super
benefits of
far away.
AGI, if any? Like, do we actually want AGI? Do we want something that can think and plan and have its own free will over ours?
Oh,
Should
that's a
we?
good question. Not sure, to be honest.
Don't know until you try it out.
I can
I feel like
only
I don't want. I
Yeah.
like being the only sentient being,
yeah.
your creature, whatever species.
I can only imagine the dangers of the you know how in most cases whenever a new technology emerges like with AI or even like you could even argue cryptocurrencies in the past decade, like anytime a major shift in technology arises, like regulation is always so like late behind, at least in our government. And so I'm just worried that once AGI finally, has a massive breakthrough, either in the surface level, like, research world, or even hidden in like certain militaries or stuff like that, I'm just worried, that can cause devastating effects if it's not properly controlled. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean that I have another question to kind of ask you and everybody actually. So then should AI development be regulated by private companies, governments, or a combination of both? Like how do we know how to move forward in this regard? Like what's the next step, you know?
Good question. I think there has to be some balance, right, of government, non-government organizations, maybe to at least lay a foundation. It's my
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, man,
I
I
mean,
think
it's crazy.
yeah, to be honest, if it was me, I think I would kind of have like this kind of world governing body that would bring people from all walks of life, right? Because everybody has their own way of thinking, and they would essentially, you would have experts, you would have laymen, you would have people who aren't necessarily techie, kind of talking about these issues and then kind of creating these guidelines. Obviously, it's hard to say without getting too political, right?
Right.
Who should be the ones to regulate this stuff? If you say corporations, a lot of people say that corporations value profits over being ethical. So it's hard to say. And then on the other hand, people say governments too got their hand in everything. They want to regulate everything. So I mean, to me, I think it's more of just like a world governing body where you just have this committee of people made up of every people around the world where they're making these guidelines and everything, and then everybody essentially has to follow.
And to be clear, in my opinion too, like to add on to that, while you might have like one organization, I think that's very important. I think, having everybody in the globe combine into, those ideas, I think that's very important. But I think it kind of, in my opinion, will turn into one of those situations where even if you have regulations, obviously people won't always follow them, and so you might have, there's like always massive either data breaches or huge Trojans that are released by, you never know exactly where they're from, but there's always malicious intent. So I'm thinking it's kind of going to be like that. The same thing with AGI. It's going to be development that's going to be under the table. It might be released to cause significant damage for some malicious gain, and the only real way to potentially stop people from breaking the rule, or like causing so much damage, is by countering it. So with like, for example, they've developed a lot of you guys can add on, but a lot of cybersecurity techniques. As you get more and more knowledgeable about the different ways to break something, you can figure out better ways to prevent it breaking in the future. And so I feel like that's kind of the direction it might go into. I could be wrong, but that's just using history as kind of for my thought process. What do you guys think?
Super interesting question. I mean, I guess we'll never really know. I mean, we didn't until it actually something happens and like we'll just have to see it play out. I mean, you never can give a solid answer on these kind of things, I don't think, 'cause it's something that's so fragile, something that's like so new and novel. I wouldn't know personally.
Yeah, and it's hard to talk in hypotheticals, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to tech and the speed at which everything's advancing. I mean, just the amount of time it took from people to go from radio to television, technology is advancing way faster than that now. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. Hard to say where we'll be in even a month, where we'll be in a year. So many advancements are coming out. I mean, we didn't necessarily even know about these quantum
Like the
advances
advancements in
we
the
had
tech.
Yeah.
recently.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Microsoft's been working on Majorana for 17 years, and they finally got to where they want, at least the starting point of where they want.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy stuff too.
yeah. So yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. I don't know what we'll be able to witness in the next coming months and years and stuff. So
Crazy stuff. Anybody else have anything to say?
I don't think anything for me.
Okay. Speaking of the future and not knowing what it holds, Alphabet's investment in humanoid robotics. I'm personally a big proponent of humanoid robotics. I think that once it comes out, I'm going to be the first early adopter. Like as soon as it comes out, be having it clean my house, clean my car, do anything, just pick up the trash, anything. But anyways, so Google basically Alphabet, that's Google's their DBA, Alphabet's the parent company, has invested heavily in Apptronic, which is a startup for developing humanoid robots for household and industrial tasks. These robots are basically expected to perform repetitive tasks and integrate with I thought this was cool, DeepMind's AI. And in DeepMind, that's I know it's actually I'm not too sure. I always get DeepMind and deep research intertwined in my head. I'm not too sure what DeepMind's AI is. Do you guys know what that is in general? Is that like a specific AI that would be integrated, like a large language model, or is that
I well, I mean, that's kind of like Google's, like their AI, kind of like their AI practice.
okay?
DeepMind's the one that's building all their models, right?
I
So
see.
yeah, and then deep research are the AI models or AI functionalities that all these companies are coming out with, that essentially you give it a prompt to go and research, and it goes to the internet and essentially does the search for you and searches through all these links, and then through reasoning
Okay.
it finds the sources that match your research topic the most, and then it basically comes out with like a big block of research that might have taken you days. It took this model like 3 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I just looked it up actually. So yeah, you're right. It's a British American Artificial Intelligence Research Laboratory, which is a subsidiary of Alphabet. Okay, founded in 2010. I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know exactly what it is. But anyways, so that leads me into some questions. Should humanoid robots be integrated into everyday life? Or do you guys think they're an unnecessary replacement for AI assistants like ChatGPT and Alexa? What do you guys think about that?
Good question. I think it comes with a lot of effects from the ground up, honestly. I think on a day-to-day thing, like you mentioned, having an at-home assistant is, I think a lot of people would love that, right? There's a lot of things I think the use cases for are really good. I think it kind of calls into question other things. I think we kind of touched on this earlier this week when we were talking, but you have kind of ethical dilemmas, right? Because if I have a robot cleaning my house now, I'm not going to hire someone to come clean my house, right?
Yeah.
Assuming that I have the money to hire someone to come clean my house. So then it kind of calls into question, okay, well, now we're replacing jobs of someone. So I think the big question that you hear with AI, I think is kind of a great place to talk about it, is what is AI, what's its impacts on, lower level jobs, like people that are working at, a fast food restaurant, especially with Magma, right? Now you have a robot that can make a burger consistent every time, use the exact amount of product you want, and not worry about as many inconsistencies or messes and all the things that come with a human interaction. It's going to be, it's not going to call out for a shift and leave you stranded or anything like that. So the question that you kind of end up having is these agents and these different products and things are replacing a lot of jobs. So I'm kind of curious on your thoughts as to that more so, because that's going to be something we have to work on as a society, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I think innovation, there's always a chance that people's jobs could be replaced. I mean, we can just take those lantern lighters back then as an example, right? Before the advent
Yeah.
of electricity, basically you would have these towns that would have these lines of gas of natural gas go to these lanterns, and then somebody had to go every day and li with a ladder climb up these lamp posts and light them every time. And then
Hmm.
once it became morning, that they had to uh, basically put them out. Then when electricity came, we didn't really need these lantern guys anymore, right? But obviously AI is a little different. Yeah, it's sad to say, but if your job is super repetitive and has defined steps, it's just a fact of life that your job's going to be replaced by AI, and it's kind of going to be like this thing where people in those positions are going to have to try to upskill and increase their skills so they can do something else. I don't know what that's going to look like, what the future is going to bring. People like to bring up the thing where we're going to get to a point where all these people won't have to work, and at that point, are we going to have to use something like universal basic income, where now that these people aren't working or they can't find jobs, are we going to have to, as like a global, kind of like a global initiative, kind of give these people money so that they can survive? Who knows?
I was
Definitely
gonna
think it's something that, oh, go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, I was going to challenge you on that a little bit, Sahib. I know I agree with you to a certain extent, but I think while AI eventually, in my opinion, will replace a lot of repetitive tasks, I did notice that there's a lot of pushback from the general public still on a lot of those jobs being taken over. For example, in my university a couple of years back, they created like a new business, brick and mortar, where they only had like a robotic barista or like a robotic bartender that would you would go up, serve the drink, or order your drink, and it would try to make it for you and replace all the repetitive tasks. But not only did it get horrible reviews, it also just immediately failed. It was an easy business to run, according to like the founders. There was like low costs for keeping it running, but the upfront was high, as well as people just didn't like it. Even though the measurements were the same for the drinks, something failed, something did not work. And so I'm wondering if that's just because of resistance from the public. Maybe there is that human factor that people enjoy, as well as
Yeah.
I guess maybe going back to the prior topic, the bridge to the actual physical capabilities of incorporating AI is still, I think, not there yet. So I guess it's just once that gap is bridged more, I'm wondering if certain other jobs, like more of like the trade jobs, are going to go out of business as well. So I'm just wondering, what do you guys think about that?
I definitely think the people that are facing that or are worried about that have a lot of time. I don't think Magma and these other platforms that are going to be replacing anyone's job soon. I don't think a plumber has to worry about it. I think if you're 16 years old and your dream is to become a plumber, then you should maybe start thinking about some other ways to move your career around. But I mean, some people don't have that ability. On your point with the bartending and the barista, I think anytime you have a job that is a person to person interaction, which is why I also think plumbing, you're probably going to be okay to some degree. Anytime you have a job like that, right? If you go to a bar, you don't want your bartender to be a robot. And I think jobs like that will be safe, right? I don't think every job is replaceable because we do want the human interaction. But on something like who's cooking your burger, well, you're not interacting with that person. So
Right.
people are less likely to have an issue. I mean, I've actually gone to a place with the robotic barista, and even though I'm big into tech, I'm also with that. I don't like it as much. I prefer like kind of the comfort of having a person, because I don't know about that one, but the two that I've seen were in glass boxes. So you just walk up to an iPad, you put your order in, and it's behind the glass box and it'll dance and do fun stuff or whatever, but it's, it's not a person. And I think everybody likes the comfort of face to face.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like, how corporations, right? They want to maximize profits as much as possible, but I think people have a lot of power, right? If they push back against these companies and decide they don't want to keep using these services, if they keep automating, obviously these companies are going to start hurting because the people are the ones that put money into the economy, right? And buy their services. So yeah, I guess it depends on how much pushback the general public wants to give against these companies that want to try to literally automate everything, so they don't have to pay actual wages to people and maximize the profits as much as possible. But yeah, it's a interesting, definitely interesting economic and philosophical debate for sure.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting things. I will move us to the next headline. Is everybody good on about this so far? Anybody got anything else to say?
Yeah, I think,
Good.
I think
Okay. So DeepSeek, the Chinese AI startup, disrupted the whole market. I know Sahib, you got a lot to say about this in particular. So DeepSeek, a Chinese AI startup, claims its open source AI models outperforms major competitors like OpenAI and Google at a fraction of the cost, which basically, I don't know if you guys saw NVIDIA, the stock plummeted that day. And then
Temporarily,
you saw,
temporarily.
yeah, temporarily it rebounded. You saw that, but then you see on the App Store too, it was like the most downloaded app. It
Yeah.
was top of the App Store. So you see
Yeah.
things like that. My question, kind of to tie this in, is do you guys think DeepSeek's AI is powerful and cost efficient as they claim? Do you think they could surpass the US in AI leadership within the next like 5 to 10 years? What do you guys think?
I mean, I don't think so. For me, DeepSeek for me is more of a testament to open source, right? Their model was essentially built off the research of Llama and stuff, right? So I think it's a testament to how open source gives all these other people the ability to bring their own ideas to these advancements that these other companies are having. And I think it's good. I think open source should be a thing. I think that
Very transparent.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
definitely very
super
transparent,
transparent.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I do have an opinion about whether or not DeepSeek actually only spent 5 million.
Spill it,
Uh,
Sahib. Spill it.
yeah, I
Spill the
don't
Yeah.
beans.
I don't think that's the case. Obviously, they didn't spend as much as all these other proprietary companies because they already had stuff to work on. Technically, DeepSeek was trained on the output of other models. So it was trained on the output of OpenAI and stuff like that. So and that's kind of the idea of how to train these small language models, right? You take the output of a larger language model to try to train the smaller language model to basically reason and think like that large language model without needing the same amount of computational power. So I think all in all, I think DeepSeek's uh, contribution to AI was great. Obviously, the facts surrounding uh, are open to debate and interpretation, but I do think that with the amount of energy and the amount of resources it takes to train these super massive large language models, I think these companies are going to need to start taking notes from the way DeepSeek did their training to try to bring down the cost and the amount of energy it takes to run these models because right now it's not sustainable.
I definitely think it's more of a piece of the pie thing than it is them overtaking anybody. Plus, I think the United States right now, because we're so, consumer driven, I think it's going to be like it has in the past. I think that's why the United States is able to thrive and push innovation really fast early on nowadays. It's because consumerism. I mean, we all are immediately into it. We ride hype trains. We like to just we are America's like the consumer hub of the world. So I think I really don't see DeepSeek taking over anything. I think that like Sahib said, I think they showed a piece of the pie, like a problem solving set kind of thing, but I don't see them overtaking anything. I think they're too small. I think they're too reliant on other agents. I don't see them taking over anything.
Well, I mean that's pretty much what open source is, right? It's the ability to take an
Yeah,
existing
but
software that someone built to make it better. And that's why open source is great. Um, and yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say they took somebody else's work and
no, I'm just saying it's reliant. They're building on top of it, but
yeah,
I just don't think that like it's not this groundbreaking thing is what I'm saying. It's more the groundbreaking part is its capabilities. Basically, it's way that they created a workaround as far as energy and cost of operation goes, which it did a really good job. I think what was does anybody know off the top of their head the numbers? Because it was like a substantial drop.
yeah, I don't remember
Headlines
the
were like 5 million. Was that correct, or that could just be?
well, that was the cost they supposedly uh spent to train the model,
Yeah.
but
There's
that's
just a
not
lot
like
of
how much
controversy around it.
that's not like how much money it takes to run the model.
Mhm.
That I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, DeepSeek there was big hype around it. They brought great ideas on how to train other models, and lower the cost of training. That's no doubt about that. The amount of lowering, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean they brought good ideas, and I don't I I'm not against DeepSeek. All these companies need to learn some things, that's for sure. Like I said, it's not sustainable how much energy and the amount of resources it takes to run these models. We just saw recently DeepSeek's OpenAI says they don't have enough GPUs for their massive 4.5 GPT model. That's why they're staggering the release. So yeah, we definitely have to come up with some type
Something.
of breakthrough that lowers the cost and the amount of resources it takes to run and train the models. It looks like Aidan had to go. I know that was a little abrupt. Obviously, this is our first podcast, so we're still getting used to the setup and hoping to improve as the videos come out and as the episodes come out. I'd like to thank you guys for listening, and it was great breaking down these headlines for you and just talking. But yeah, thank you guys for listening, and yeah, do you guys have anything else to add?
No, I look forward to learning alongside you guys as we talk and kind of leverage the resource on the platform here.
Awesome, great. I'll see you guys next episode, and I'll see the audience next episode. Thanks.
All right.